Hi everyone, Catherine here from Inky Finger Cat. Today, in my world, it is Boxing Day, so happy Boxing Day. I hope people have had a nice Christmas. By the time you're seeing this, it'll be New Year's Day. That's the plan. May not even turn into a video. Don't know. We'll see how I get on. So, first of the month is always pattern paper on my blog, and I thought maybe this year I might do it as a filmed thing. I also think that what I'm going to do is do a Kendra's card challenge every month. Because I'm not one of her Patreon type people, I did win a membership for a little while, but I don't really do Patreon or anything like that. I don't have the one that starts in January. So I am going to go with number 20, KCC 20, for this particular one, which is my January one. So, did I say Happy New Year? Happy New Year, because that's where you'll be. Yeah, I'm still in 2025. You're in 2026. Okay, so I've got my Kendra's Card Challenge stuff all printed off, but I did get a bit prepped. Okay, so what I mean by getting a bit prepped is I have been through my stash of pattern papers and pulled out cut some into 6x6 papers of different varieties. But these are kind of all a bit masculine-y themed, or they could work as masculine cards. So that's my first starting point. So there's my 6 pieces of pattern paper for cutting up to make Kendra's Card Challenge. And when I say I've got a bit prepped, I did stamping and colouring. And I actually did this probably about 3 months ago. And they've just been sitting there waiting to be used. And so I decided to team the two things together. So I've got some little robot dudes. I've got some weird splodgy circly things that were an indigo blue stamp. I have stamps, some of which have got circles in, some of which have got the little robot dudes, some have got light bulbs, and again I have already kind of pre-coloured some of this. I've got some black and grey present type things, that's a paper artsy stamp. I've got these fab leaves that are waffle flower stamps that I've already coloured in, ready for fussy cutting, or actually I think I can die cut those. Most of these I can fussy cut. I've then got more stamps with the leaves, and then some chess pieces, and then chess pieces. So my idea was I would do a load of fussy cutting, which I haven't done in advance, but I have done all the stamping and the colouring. And to be honest, I didn't do this even sat at my craft desk, so you wouldn't have been able to see that me doing this on video. They're all on a kind of cream cardstock. It's quite a heavyweight cream cardstock rather than white, because these papers have got a lot of cream with the blacks and the browns to them. So that was my theory. So I'm going to stick the video on. The cutting bit I'll do in very fast forward, and then I'll go to my normal ×4 fast forward, and that I'll do voiceovers. That's if I get all these cards made. This could be a very long video. It could be split into 2 parts. We'll see how I get on. But I just wanted to show my face, since you're going to see this. Well, you might see this at any time, but you will not see it any earlier than the 1st of January. So I just wanted to show my face. Wish you all a lovely new year. One hopes that you have a lovely creative time, because you're only going to be watching my video if you're interested in being creative. And let's get on. So I'm going to put this portion of the cutting up of the papers into super speedy fast forward. This is about ×8, something like that. Might even go up to about ×10 at one point. There are plenty of videos showing you how to cut up the papers using Kendra's fabulous cutting guides and then the sketches. I've done them in the past. Kendra does brilliant ones too, along with other people on her design team. So I'm keeping this in here so it's part of the video, but the reality is there are other videos showing you this as well, both within my playlist history somewhere along the line. Definitely did one as part of Christmas in July, so there's definitely one for that. But this is basically how I do it. I choose my pattern papers. Sometimes I'll choose things that are clearly coordinated, and other times
I'm going to put things together that I'm going to decide they're going to coordinate, whether they like it or not. And that's what I did in this case. So some of the papers are Stampin' Up! Papers. I think there's possibly 3 of them are from the same kit, the same pack. There's then another Stampin' Up! Paper from a very different set. And then there's 2 random papers. One's a Maggie Holmes and one of them I think was Paper Mania. Could be wrong. So yes, there's a few different ones in there. So once you've got your 6x6 papers, you basically choose each one that's going to go with each of the cutting templates. It's important to look for directions, as in, has your paper got a directional pattern to it? So is it text? Is it like that music print was? Or is it something like this where the wood grain, it really doesn't matter which way up it goes. It can go at either direction. Whereas this one with the handwriting, it matters. So on the cutting guides, it has got little arrows that tells you which direction that paper will get used on the card template. So it's important to choose ones accordingly. Choose one that's got very few going in a different direction, and do that. What I do is I do all of my cutting paper by paper. As I finished each paper, I then will go and put the pieces into an envelope that's been numbered for the card that they belong to. And then I will go through each card, following the little sketch to do all of the layering bits. Now you'll see there I did gut one of the layers where I knew it was going to be totally covered up. I just cut out the centre part, and I did it with like my craft knife and then scissors. There I go again. Because it's going to be covered up, I know no one's going to see that final layer. It saves us money because, I'm not using up precious cardstock. I mean, cardstock can be pricey. I'm using a mixture of different cardstocks in this. So the one that I'm cutting up currently, that brown, is Crumb Cake from Stampin' Up. The black, I actually think was taken from a sketchbook. I could be wrong, or a journal or something that I've then gutted because I don't do journaling anymore, like junk art journaling kind of stuff. So I think that's where the black came from. I don't think it was an expensive cardstock, if you know what I mean. It was just something that's been recycled from another project. The other cardstock that I bring in as well at some point a bit later, there is like a sand coloured one, and it's a big sheet of 12 by 12. That's from my Kingston Crafts cardstock. In fact, I think you're about to see it now because I'm pretty sure it's on this. There you go. On this particular card that I bring it in. So I do have, I do use a few different colours, but they're all sort of tonally work with the papers. And then there is a random colour comes in, so I don't do them all just in neutrals. There is one of the pattern papers has got some kind of like teal blue splatters on it, the Maggie Holmes one. So I do bring in a teal blue as well, just for a bit of difference. And I use that on a few of the cards. Now, all of the templates are to make American-sized cards, which are... Here we go. This is where I start bringing in this teal. You can tell. Could you tell I was umming and ahhing? I was also umming and ahhing because there are a couple of little pieces that are actually designed to go inside cards. I've just popped them off to the side. There we go. This is my teal coming in. It's gorgeous, isn't it? I really like that. I don't know where that card's from. It might be an Alex Siberia paper, or might be a Stampin' Up paper. Really can't remember. Oh, cardstock. But yeah, what was I saying? I had to go back and listen. I was talking about the card sizes. So yeah, all of the card templates are to fit the American size card, which would be like a quarter of their equivalent of A4. I think it's called letter size or something, which is obviously not quite the same as the UK sized A4. So they are 5.5 by 4.25. Pretty sure that I've just given that size incorrectly. Yeah, pretty sure it's that. So they're not quite perfect for the UK standard card blank. Sometimes I don't let it worry me and I'll just make card blanks that are that size. But what these work really well with is a 5x7 card blank. So if you've got 5x7 card blanks, these make a really lovely topper with a lovely border around them. So that's what I tend to do quite often. Not always. Certainly I've done some Christmas cards fairly recently where I didn't do that, and I did end up doing them as the traditional US size, 5.5 by 4.25. You'll see sometimes I don't measure things particularly well, but yes, sometimes I have to go back and go and fiddle with things. What I find really useful though is all of those card sketches all have exact layering instructions as well. So they've all got all of the different layers. It tells you what size piece you're using, but also what size is the layer that's underneath it. So every mat looks perfect. If you follow the similar sort of technique to the way that I do it, make sure you look in all of your envelopes when you are pulling out your pieces and do a quick layer up of them, because sometimes I find that I have managed to miss some bits and pieces. You'll see that a little bit later on. But yeah, sometimes I don't quite get that right. What else do I want to tell you? I think there are some of these designs. I've definitely done this particular template before, the KCC 20, and some of them are quite fiddly, and most of them, after those sort of probably the first 3 or 4, are nowhere near as fiddly. So don't get worried if you start on it and you think, God, this is really complicated, getting your spacing and all the rest of it right, because it gets easier. It really does get easier. So you'll see there on that particular one, the sort of sketch suggests a circle. I didn't use a circle at that point. What I'm doing is I just cut where it says die cut circle and it's got like a little patch on the top. What I tend to do is just cut a square that's big enough to die cut that sort of size circle from, and then I'll decide later when I start putting the card together whether I'm going to go circle or not. Okay, that was all the cutting. Now you can clearly see I'm onto all these elements that I've already stamped and coloured. As I say, I did this months ago. I just stamped a whole load of stuff out and just coloured it in one day. Well, in fact, it was done over a couple of days. And then I put them in a pouch, and then I thought, oh, what am I going to do with all of those things that I've stamped and coloured? And I went and found the papers to go with. So this project has been sitting there waiting to go, waiting for January. Obviously, I'm currently filming this in December. But yeah, that's what I do. So I am cutting apart all of these little images and putting them into like little piles according to their like theme or the imagery that they used. All the ones that I can get away with using my trimmer to do, I'll do with my trimmer. And then I'll leave the fussy cutting till next, and then I'll do my die cutting. So the only one that actually need to be properly fussy cut were these sort of like squiggly circles. They are so forgiving to fussy cut out though, because circles are normally a nightmare, but because these are squiggly ones, so they're not actually perfect circles, it means that your imperfections of fussy cutting really don't matter. So I did cut them all out with a bit of a boundary around the outside, but the others, I'd cut all the others with my trimmer so that they were squares or rectangles. You'll see when I use some of those stamp images, you know, the ones that I've made into like postage stamps, I do end up trimming them down further with my scissors when I come to use them. But for the moment, this is a good way of doing it. Now, you'll see this particular waffle flower set of stuff to go with these leaves a couple of times in these videos, because I absolutely love them, and it comes with a whole load of stuff. So first of all, I've got obviously the leaves. Now it's got 2 dies that cut these leaves. So one puts an impression of like the veins in the leaf, so it's like a dotted line on the veins. It's really cute. I mean, to be fair, most people probably wouldn't even notice it, but you know, those of us who love the details when we're crafting do it. And then another one that just cuts it out, all of the leaves individually. So the little tip and trick is, if you have got a stamp set like this, keep the stamps together, because weirdly Waffle Flower designed it as individual stamps. But if you have them slightly out of alignment because you've stamped them individually, you're not going to get the die cuts to work, because the die is just one die. And similarly, there's a stencil for colouring them, so don't do that. And then the little robots are from Lawn Fawn. So here we go. We are now going to start assembling card number 1. Card number 1, what I do is I check first on the actual template before I start adhering anything. I absolutely would not have adhered that black to the crumb cake layer if I'd have thought was adding any texture or anything along those lines. So I do check first, because this one's got quite a lot of the pattern paper. And as you can see, it is a little bit fiddly, these first 3, I'd say, probably just to get the alignment okay. But yeah, because it's covered in a lot of pattern paper, I know I'm not going to add any texture to this or anything extra in the background. But if you are going to do that, then don't adhere anything. Until you have designed your card and you know exactly what it's going to look like, don't adhere anything. So for this one, I decided I was going to use those chess pieces. I was going to use one of the stamped images, and then I'm going to fussy cut a couple of the actual chess pieces individually out and have those layered on the card too. I think this is a lovely stamp. It's a stamp set that I've had for a while. I bought it secondhand. It's a big wood mounted one, so I don't use it that often, but I think it's really cute. Now you'll see there I brought in that sort of yellow sentiment, which seems a bit weird, but I just really like the pop of colour. And it's still it still works. It's not like totally weird having the yellow. I think it works anyway. And you can see there what I'm trying to do is do the corners and the edges first, and then I'll start putting the other ones in so that I'm trying to get the spacing so that it's okay. And that's my little tip around those sorts of things. Where there's quite a lot of fiddly pieces of paper, I tend to go corners first and have those so that I think that they're going to align. You can get tools, like you could use a T ruler or something along those lines to get things to be straighter. I can't be bothered with that kind of stuff. I think it's fine. I've used my ATG to glue everything into place. But then these 2 little chess pieces, I'm going to just raise them up on some foam adhesive and then slot my little sentiment in tucked underneath just there. Now I and ah about what gems to use. Do I want to use gems? And I decide I do. I'm going to use these plain black ones. So they've got just a tiny bit of sparkle, but nothing major. They're from Hobbycraft, and you can see there's quite a large amount of them on the sheet. And that's my first one done. Forgot to say the sentiment from that first one was Dina Wakley, and it's a foiled sentiment. Right, second card, again, a lot of cardstock pattern paper pieces on it, so I know I'm not going to add any texture or any extras to the background, and instead I'm going to I just adhered that straight down. Now for this one I decided I was going to use the light bulb stamp, and then I'm umming and ahhing about the sentiment and the placement, and I decide on that as my placement. My sentiments I've kind of just grabbed from the stuff that I've already got stamped and die cut and ready. I've got a whole load of stash of those sorts of things, so I've got those grabbed. Just any that I thought the colour would work with the backgrounds. I don't always use them, but sometimes I use the ready-made ones, and sometimes I'm going to get ones from scratch. I find doing a sentiment is probably the bit that I enjoy the least about crafting. So if I've made a whole load in advance, that's just going to make my life a lot easier. Now for this one I decided I wanted a little bit of ink just to define the edges of each of the pieces. Just helps frame them a little bit and help them defined. So I used my black soot, but I used the little blending tool like the Tim Holtz one in order to add the ink. So it was literally a very small amount of it around the edges, and it's not too distressed or anything. I am, again, corners, and then I'll add in the other pieces. That's kind of how I've worked it. And then, again, I'm just adding that little bit of ink to the edge of that craft piece, or crumb cake piece. I did add ink to the edge of the stamp, and then the stamp I am raising up on adhesive foam. I'm then going to do exactly the same with the thanks. I'm going to have it so that there's a little bit of adhesive on one edge, and then the bit that's hanging over has got the adhesive foam. And again, just going in with some of these gems. This time I went with sort of like they're a sort of a dark grey colour, just added 3 of them on that one. Now you'll see at this point I am not adding them to card blanks. I'll do that at the very end off camera. I am literally just creating the card toppers at this point because I hadn't, if I'm honest, decided what to do and whether I was going to do them this size or add them to the 5x7s. So I went a bit backwards and forwards on this one, but I ended up using 3 of these squiggly circles and that lovely Hugs die cut sentiment. That was my theme. And then I decided I was going to bring in some wax thread. So just like the previous one, I'm bringing in the distress ink and that tulle just to add a little bit to the edges. And then I decide, actually this one I want to be distressed. I want a little bit of the texture from the distressing. So I'm using the distress tool to rough up the edges of both layers of the background. And then on that crumb cake one, I did just add in a tiny bit of the black too. Again, it just helps to frame it a little bit. Now, each of the panels I'd added the distress ink to already, and then I'm just ruffling them up just lightly. You could go full on texture with this distress tool, but I just ruffled them up slightly before I then added them on. I did keep this one all flat for the background, but this time I'm going to add all of the circles with the adhesive foam. Now you'll see that I do overlap the piece, the final tiny one. So on the final tiny one, I did just add a little bit of the ATG where it was going to overlap, and then the adhesive foam where they were not going to sit. And this is where I decided I really wanted a little nest off the string, but that Hugs was going to get lost and it wasn't quite going to look right. So I went back into the scraps from all of the bits of cardstock that I'd used for creating the mats and the layers. And I created this tiny little banner, used my punch to do the banner fishtail ends, and then using my adhesive that picks it up perfectly, that little nest of the wax thread. And then I'm umming and ahhing a little bit about where I'm going to put it, and I decide I want it off to the right so it's hanging over, so a little bit of adhesive foam to the right hand side. Did add a bit of glue to those adhesive dots just to make sure that it's stuck in place with me having that wax thread there, and again some of those black gems. Now card 4 is meant to be a horizontal card. You'll see there the sketch is up on the top left hand side and it's got this panel going across for the sentiment. Again, I decided it was covered in quite a lot of the pattern paper, so it wasn't going to need the texture. This is where I realised I'd left some of the pieces in the envelope, so I went and rescued them again. I'd already filed the envelope off to the side. I decided instead of the sentiment going across, I would actually do that big focal point of that full stamped chess pieces. I decided that would work well instead. But I felt like it needed a little bit of a boundary. It needed kind of framing. So I did add the mat of the crumb cake. And you'll see there, I just used that archival ink. It's in watering can, which is like a dark grey. And it's just a little bit softer than using black. And I then decided I was going to edge everything. So I edged not just the stamped panel, but I edged every single piece of paper. The mat for the chess piece, and also I'm pretty sure, although I'm now thinking, did I or did I not? I'm pretty sure I also edged the very base panel. Maybe I didn't. Doesn't look like I did. I thought I had, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I go back and do it later. No, maybe I don't. Okay, so this one, again, it's a little bit fiddly getting the spacings right, and I didn't do a great job. I thought that they overlapped more, and then I suddenly realised, no, my middle piece is definitely now on its own and not got the other pieces sitting with it. Fortunately, I'd sort of did this quickly enough that I'd got enough time to fiddle with it and move it around a bit, and then it was all fine. But I then hadn't put them on straight at the top, so I decided, you know what, we're just going to go wonky. Sometimes when things go wonky, just go wonky. It's fine. Nobody notices these things apart from me, and now it looks like it's wonky on purpose, and it's fine. I did decide, though, I wanted a bit of texture, and to be honest, this was a fun idea, and I love it, but it's almost not visible. I punched some holes using my crocodile, on either side, and then just threaded my thread through so that they go sort of like crisscross across the pattern paper, and I really love it. Use some double-sided adhesive to then, you know, put it into place at the back, and made sure it was all stuck down and definitely not going to come loose. And then as soon as I put my panel on the top, you can hardly see anything. So I love it. I wish I'd just done it with a smaller focal point, you know, but I know it's there and it looks great. I've raised it up on adhesive foam so that it's, you know, above the that thread, and then with the remainder of the thread created a bow and then used a glue dot to just adhere it in place. Now this is one where I thought I need a happy birthday for this. This is what I want as a happy birthday card, and I hadn't got any birthday sentiments already done that were going to be the right colour. So this is where I start doing one from scratch. Here we go. I need to do more birthday sentiments so that they are ready to go. That's got to be a to-do list between now and New Year so that things are going to be ready for future projects. But I used a Hunky Dory For the Love of Stamps stamp. It's the one that's got the jazz singers, the jazz players, the jazz musicians that I used in a Make It Masculine recently. So yeah, it was that one. It's just a nice font and I thought it worked well. I did it so it was overlapping the top layer and then a bit of foam underneath for the bit that was hanging off. And then this is the final card for today because, you know what, it was a bit ambitious thinking I could do 15 cards. Don't know what I was thinking. I'm recording this voiceover many hours later. But yeah, we were going out for a meal and everything, so I still had to get myself out of my pyjamas and get myself looking ready. We've now been out for a meal. I'm absolutely stuffed full at the moment. I'm back in my pyjamas, I must admit. But yeah, the idea of doing 15 cards at this point, I'm thinking, was insane. So I do only have 5 for you in this video. Hopefully the others will get made. I might make them tomorrow, you never know. But they'll have to be in a separate video because I think this is already very long. Well done if you stuck with it. This is probably the most involved of the cards that I do, and you can see here that I'm inking lots of things. I've added in both Distress Black Soot and Vintage Photo to both the papers because just one of them just looked too bright, and to the leaf images just to make them all the same colourway. I'm then using the background, it's like a cover plate die, but it doesn't actually cut round the edge. And the images of the leaves are just kind of like little pop-ups. They don't actually cut out, if you know what I mean. They're just some edges that cut. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous die, and I've never used it like this before. So it's got the coordinating stencil, which I have definitely used, and I'm pretty sure I've done it on a video before. Beautiful autumnal colours, etc. But I've never done it like this, where I've used Versamark and then embossing, and wow, it looks cool. So this is it, obviously not melted, making sure I'm doing a good clear up job. I must admit, I kept myself pretty tidy during this session. It probably took me about an hour and 20 minutes in total to make the 5 cards, including all the cutting and prepping of all those pieces. But yeah, I didn't do too bad. It's not a total disaster in my craft room, which is unusual. But this, once it's embossed, wow, it's so sparkly. And it looks so lovely on the black. I just love it. Just love it. So this, for some reason, though, at this point my brain went completely mad and I suddenly thought, what am I doing? I've got nothing for this to glue onto if I've put adhesive all the way around because I've gutted the panel for underneath it. So, little word of warning, don't do that. It's very simple to resolve it, though. I just created myself a little panel for the back that was just from some scrap paper. Quite thin scrap paper. Just means that the adhesive isn't sticking to everything. And now I'm going to start putting my card together. So those areas where there is no layers on top, I am just popping up those little leaves, giving them a bit of dimension and shape. And that's what this die does. It kind of cuts it in so you can pop them up a little bit at the edges. And then I decided I wanted more gold because, you know, I've gone a bit gold. I'm going to go more gold, and I just literally doing the edge of this black panel. I did drop it on the floor and have to rescue it, but it was fine. It's just to give a bit of subtle extra gold to the panel. And oh yes, I also used my Pro Marker just to do the edging, just to get a thicker and more distinct line than Distressing would do. I used a Pro Marker just to run alongside the edge, and so that worked for both the pattern paper and for that panel of the crumb cake cardstock. And then on this one, all the other stamps, all I've done is done a straight line along the edge, and this one I am going in full on fussy cutting. I don't do a brilliant job, but to be honest, it's very forgiving as an image, especially if you do what I'm doing there and just ink up the edge, because nobody can see that you've not done a brilliant job on it. I did stick this panel up on some foam adhesive, as you can see there, just because I wanted it to be above those other panels and above those leaves that are sort of like popped up. And then I added this particular image of the stamp just off the edge at the top. So again, some foam on that bit and then flat on the rest of it. And then I've glued my individual leaves into place. I was going to do a hello card, but I ended up doing hugs again. And again, I'm adding in a little banner just underneath it because I just wanted it to kind of stand out a little bit. I did ink up the edge of that again, just so that it was in keeping. And then there's my little hugs. And to be honest, it's quite a bright hugs compared to the rest of it, but I love it. So those are the 5 cards I made today in session 1. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do let me know if you did. And I want to know what your crafty plans are for 2026. I've got loads planned. I'm not going to go into it now as to what I've got planned, but there's loads of things I've got on my little list of things that I want to do, want to achieve, want to have here on my channel. So the most important thing to do now is to hit that subscribe button. So please do that. Then if you want, hit the notification bell. Then you'll get a little message to say I've uploaded something. Probably quite important when you're not a routine person for delivering. You know, I don't upload on an exact schedule. So it's probably sensible to hit that notification bell so you know when my videos go live, and then you can catch up with me. And then I genuinely want to know, have you had a good Christmas? What are your plans for 2026? Please leave me a comment below. I really enjoy reading them. I try to respond to them promptly, sometimes within seconds, and sometimes it's maybe a couple of days, but I do try to respond to all the comments. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed these cards. I have loved putting them together. I do think this is probably my favourite because it's just so shiny and lovely. But I also like that one with the chess pieces that that was on just before that, card number 4. I think that's pretty cool too. So a lovely first set of cards.
That's me done for
5
today.
to start us
So
off
please
the new
subscribe
year.
to see
There's
more.
also
Please
something
leave me a
else coming up
comment
on my
below
blog
to see if
today
you've
for
enjoyed
something else.
this. Thank you
Otherwise,
so much for
thank you so
watching.
much for watching.
Until next time.
Bye bye.